Awesome. Okay. So we are recording this so that anybody who's not able to be here is able to watch this later, or so if anybody misses anything and wants to go back and rewatch it, you're able to do that. Again, I'm Mackenzie with Oregon Moms Union. We also have Nicole Reardon and Nicole DeGraff from my team on as well. And we are just so excited to be here tonight with Dimitri from Freedom Foundation and have him talking to us about the government teachers unions. And really, the government teachers unions is kind of why OMU started. Back in 2021, we were all just trying to get our kids back into the classroom after distance learning, and the government teachers unions pushed back so hard to keep them out of school. And we really felt like if our kids had a union, they would have been back in school. And so we decided it's high time that somebody started a union for our kids, for parents. And so that's where the Oregon Moms Union came from. So I'm going to hand it over to Dimitri here just in a second, but a couple housekeeping items. We will be doing a drawing after this for everybody who registered for a gift pack of OMU and Freedom Foundation swag and Rebecca Friedrich's book, Standing Up to Goliath, which is an amazing book. It's all about, standing up to the teachers unions. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then when Dimitri's done, we'll go through those and answer any questions that we have. And please just remember to mute yourselves so that we are respectful. And I will give it up for Dimitri.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you very much. If you want to give me, there you go. Awesome. I'll kind of throw on the screen here shortly, just a quick kind of a PDF that I will just go kind of something that we can continue having the conversation with, and you guys can all kind of follow along with some of the things I was going to talk about. And I didn't want to make this too long today, so I'll kind of just hit the highlights of the things that we'll talk about, and you guys can ask questions, and we'll just get into some of the just the most important things about the unions. But I guess we can try to do this. If you guys know, have you any of you in the audience today, any of you been part of a government union in the past? I'm just curious how many folks here kind of know what the union is and who the union is. And we're obviously talking about the government unions specifically, and the unions are specifically for the in the government, not private sector, but the public sector. And with no hands seen, then this will be an interesting conversation. I think most of you are lucky that you haven't had to be in the union. I've had to be in the union once before in the private sector, and I really had zero. There's just been a zero experience, nothing good or bad, other than just they're taking my money. But basically, before I get into that, the Freedom Foundation, we've been around for over 30 years. And we originally started as a think tank and policy center, specifically just going through labor issues and studying the labor issues and kind of following it with the session in Washington. And for a while, that was just kind of our thing. And our mission has been just kind of promote the liberty and promote individual liberty, promote just capitalism and things like that. And it's been somewhat successful, but it's just never been something that we felt like it was going to be very strong. And 4 years ago, there was an incredible decision that came down from the Supreme Court. I would assume most people that haven't heard of it. It's called Janus versus AFSCME, and that decision really made a big difference. And what's interesting is that most of us, I think, are from Oregon, and we just saw a governor race with Tina Kotek. We saw, Christine Drazan, Tina Kotek, and some of you might have heard, that's probably the only time somebody in the news mentioned when SEIU donated $1 million to Tina Kotek. And that was probably the only time that was a headline that related to the unions. I think, teachers unions were also barely mentioned out there as well, because they've donated also $100,000 just kind of randomly. But before that, if people followed the race more, there's been 100,000 dropped here, 100,000 dropped there, and slowly they've been just kind of throwing money down in the races and essentially influencing our elections, influencing the candidates and influencing what's going to go on in the elections. And a lot of members don't like that, and that's kind of what originally started the Janus decision, when public employees just were tired of we're tired of just their money going into these government these politicians that they didn't support, and for a long time they've been trying to either opt out of the small political spending that the union does, and that was successful for a little bit. And it is, at the end of the day, if you look deep down on what exactly the union does, that money, pretty much all the money, is if not majority, it goes to politicians one way or another. They either funnel it through nonprofits that they donate their money, or they funnel that money through their locals, their national and international organizations, and it really influence elections all across the state. What's interesting is our Oregon money, that our Oregon public employees, that money goes to the international union, and then it gets influence. That money is used in influence in national politics as well. So basically, the Jonas decision was eventually brought up to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court 4 years ago made a decision that no longer public employees should be forced to be in the union, and they should not be losing their job based on that if they decide to opt out of the union. And they can completely opt out. And on top of that, they made a decision also, they doubled down on that decision by saying that each union actually is supposed to get a permission of each public employee that they want to be in the union. And that was just an additional kind of a blow to the unions, that they had to not only, again, they had to get a permission. And before, it was just you come in to get a job, you sign up for paperwork, and you have to be in the union, and you have no choice. So thanks to the Supreme Court, that really kind of opened up our work, where we really just kind of like centered into that, because when we look at everything that's going on in our country, when we look at what's going on in just the entire nation and really internationally, the unions are unfortunately the major sponsor or funder of what's happening, on the left. And if I would go as far as to say they're the biggest funder, maybe after what's his name, the biggest left guy that a lot of people talk about, George Soros. So I would say he's probably, the unions altogether, they're probably even bigger than George Soros and their money. But anyway, so 4 years ago, that became the decision that allowed us to help public employees. What we see nowadays, with teachers, and that's kind of where I'll stick around, is the teachers, their money, just like every other union, has been influenced and put into these elections. And just for example, Tina Kotek, I was looking at just how much money they spent on the Tina Kotek's race. It was nearly $500,000 that was just poured in, given to Tina Kotek. And these unions don't care about their members. They don't care where the members stand on these issues, and they don't care exactly what they just literally support the most radical candidate. And in fact, they were against. They even had a committee that was specifically designed that was anybody but Betsy Johnson. And they were trying to, obviously a lot of Democrats were going for Betsy Johnson. So they were trying to discredit her and just go after her as much as possible. But anyway, I'm going to share this screen really quick just to kind of give you guys another idea of just how much money has been poured in. And I'm trying to pull it up here. I'm just waiting for this to load. Let's see here. I'm having a hard time. I think I have to do some kind of preference here. 1 second. I apologize. Can try that again. There we go. Let's see here. Can you guys see this? Are you guys seeing the Almighty Union slide? No? No? Let me try to.
Dimitri, we can see your screen, but it looks like just a bunch of file windows open, but we can't see the document.
Okay, let me try to. So you guys are just seeing the screen on one page or multiple pages?
It looks like you have a bunch of file, windows open, showing a bunch of different files, and then we can see your purple background.
Okay, let me. Okay, I'll try that again. You guys
There
see
we
that?
go.
Perfect. Okay, so the Almighty Union, and so just in 2020 alone, just to give you guys an idea, in 2020 alone, with the Joe Biden election, you know, the union gave just to Joe Biden alone, all the unions across the United States, $76 million, and then Donald Trump was $43. That's 43,000, which is mostly came from police unions, and then the NEA, which is the affiliate of the OEA, $700,000. Trump zero. Just to kind of give you an idea of how radical these unions are, they just pretty much only fund the left and just one side. And and then here's a little kind of example of the corruption. So what's interesting is, you know, if maybe you're not a teacher, and I'm curious, I guess, if we have any teachers in this room today. If there's no teachers, you know, this relates really not only to the teachers and their money. This also relates to every single person here that gives taxpayer money. Every single person that funds or every single person that pays taxes, eventually that money gets trickled down to these politicians. So not only the teachers are the ones that are giving their union dues, but we are essentially funding these, the teachers. We're paying for the teachers' jobs, obviously, and we're paying for all these services, and then that money goes to politicians. So when I talk to folks, you know, no matter if you're a member or not of the union, no matter if you even have a job that you have an option, your money still eventually gets to these politicians, and it's because of the cycle of corruption. You know, for example, you know, we pay our taxes, and that money essentially goes back into the teachers. Obviously, we pay for the teachers, and then the teachers union they collect their 3%. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And then that money then from those unions, they then fund the politicians, and the politicians then pass bills that create more loopholes for the unions, and they create bigger government, bigger union, and then essentially they collect more money, and it just continues that corruption, and it doesn't stop. And then that's why I love the work that we do. We're one of the few, if not the only, kind of major organization that puts a stop to this cycle of corruption. And we're helping teachers and public employees opt out of the union, and this way they don't have to continue the cycle. And first of all, again, stopping the cycle of corruption is one, but at the same time, they can actually put money back into their pockets, back into their families, and sometimes with, for example, SEIU, the home care providers, they put it back to the folks that they care for, and they watch out after. So and that's kind of the idea. And then, for example, the OEA, the teachers union here locally, what's interesting is, you know, they say that they represent public employees, they say they represent teachers, but if you look at where their money goes, and that's kind of another thing that we do, we look after, you know, we look at their financial spending, and just in 2019, from their 2019 financial report, they only spent 23% of their budget that went to anything relevant to representing the teachers. Everything else went to the 77% went to either their own pockets, their bonuses, their salaries, and then the rest went into their political spending. And again, that's just kind of on the surface of things. When you actually look deep down and look at some of the smaller spendings, or some of the spendings that really unknown or miscellaneous, that's a lot of times goes just continues going to politics that we didn't know about, and then they don't have to really essentially put out there because then nobody keeps them accountable. And then just to give you an example, on the national side, the National Education Association, you know, they've spent literally only 8.5% of their budget went to, again, representative activity. This is public information. This is something that anybody can come up and find this information. They're not hiding this. It's out there in public, and they don't really care, and because they know that nobody keeps them accountable. And that's, again, why opting out is really one of the only ways that we could, that public employees and teachers, that's one of the only things that they can do to keep the union accountable. They can opt out of the union, and this way they can stop funding this corruption. And hopefully, eventually, it's gonna either collapse, or it's gonna hopefully the unions are gonna start to have to start and reforming themselves and start representing their teachers. And what's interesting is the work that we're doing here in Oregon. We're actually seeing some of that already. For example, again, I mentioned earlier SEIU and their donation of $1 million to Tina Kotek. If you look deep down at where exactly that money came from, which did that come from Oregon or did that come from national? That money actually came from national. If you look at the previous elections, the local unions always had enough money to fund their own candidates, and they had enough money to funnel this money to these big candidates. But because of the SEIU losing thousands of teachers, thousands of public employees every year, and public employees opting out every year, they're starting to actually, first of all, lessen their political activity, and they're starting to now rely on national to actually donate this money, because that $1 million actually came from their national union. It came from their international and national union. So no longer can, in Oregon, they're powerful enough to spend this money. Of course, they did, here a little bit here and there, but the major blow was that $1 million. And actually, if you add up all of the SEA donations from here in Oregon and other states, I think at the very least they've given probably over $2 million, SEIU alone. And teachers, I think once we really dig up, and we're working right now on really counting all of the donations from the OEA, they probably also spent over $500,000, maybe up to $1 million, which is not, it's not, in the past, they've actually spent a lot more money. In the past, since we started our work, we've reduced the political spending of all the unions at least by 50%. Again, that's a drastic amount of money. And again, that's something that the union members, public employees, teachers can do by opting out of the union. I know there's a lot of members and a lot of teachers, they hate the fact that opting out of the union, they're saying that it hurts the union, it hurts the teachers. But at the end of the day, that's really one of the only few things that are left that public employees can do to stop this corruption. And again, at the end of the day, it's not actually hurting the teachers, it's hurting the corruption, hurting the bosses of these unions, because they no longer can be so effective on the state and national elections. At the end of the day, this is what they do. This is what they are. The unions are no longer of the old. They're pretty much now a political machine, funds the politicians here in Oregon and all across the states. So that's again why it's so important to tell not just the teachers that we know, but just continue passing on the message to as parents. One thing that we can do is talk to our teachers. And what's interesting is when I get public records requests from teachers from the state, and they give us information on teachers, we unfortunately can't really reach all these teachers. We cannot let them know, because a lot of teachers don't even know, and public employees don't know that they can opt out of the union. A lot of times they're being misinformed that if they opt out, they lose their benefits, they lose their insurance, they lose all these things. So they just simply believe what the union says. But what we do is continue informing them through mailers, through different presentations like these, and through emails, and one of the more effective ways is actually going to their houses and knocking on their doors and speaking to them with our canvassers all across the states. And that's something that we're doing as I speak right now. We have canvassers in Oregon all across. We have canvassers in other states as well. So basically, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, for example, let them know about this. Let them know that there's the option to opt out of the union, and you can actually even direct them to our website and direct them to Oregon Moms Union website, where they have a beautiful landing page now, where it really breaks down a lot of the frequently asked questions, and it directs them to the union, to our link where they can opt out of their union directly. And it takes literally less than 5 minutes. Oftentimes, I can even help a teacher over the phone opt out just from, they can just give me their basic information. I print out, or better yet, I email them a printout of their opt-out form. They just sign it and then they mail it out. So simple as that. I can even mail them an opt-out form, and we can even include a prepaid envelope where they don't have to even spend any money on mail by just opt out of the union and forget about the teachers union. And hopefully more of teachers that opt out, more of public employees that opt out, it'll eventually continue reforming them, or at the very least weakening the political activity here in Oregon and across the states. And again, we've been seeing it for the last couple of years. And then, like I said, that we reduced the political spending of over $500,000. Now they have to rely on other states where they can get more money from public employees and influence Oregon. And again, we saw a huge influence this year alone, and from the national, not from the local as much anymore, but from the national. And if we continue this work, we're going to see more and more reformation. So So that's kind of the idea. I just wanted to show you guys. There's teachers in Oregon that are opting out. Like we have, for example, Sue Smith. She opted out, and she was a school board member in the past, and she was a leader of her own local as well, in I believe Tigard or Beaverton. And lately, she was just a teacher at her school, something that she was just trying to just retire on, and she just continued being bullied. And she noticed that she just can't do much to stop this corruption. And then she decided to opt out. And we have a beautiful video on our YouTube that she talks about her experience and officially opts out of the union right there on the spot. So Kim Rice, obviously, you guys know her. She's another great lady who opted out of the union. We have Dave Brown and we have Judy Brown, also great folks here in Oregon, all utilize some of our resources on our website. And they're now also advocates for opt-out and advocates to tell more teachers and tell more public employees that they have the right to opt out. And one of the main questions, and this might be a question that comes up and often comes up, one of the most important questions that a lot of teachers ask, yes, I can opt out of the union and that's all good and well, but I'm going to lose my liability insurance, which is essentially, union says that they provide this 1 million liability insurance. And they kind of rely on it. They think that's something that protection is going to be there when they need it. And we know multiple teachers like Jeanette Shada, who just that happened to her. She got into some issues where she needed to rely on her union to represent her and to help her out. And unfortunately, the union just didn't want to do anything about it because they didn't agree with her politics. And just like that, they can just deny this liability insurance for teachers and not get any kind of accountability. They don't have to. They literally don't have to do anything about it. And that's why there's other organizations. There's other organizations like the Christian Educators, like the AEE, Northwest Professional Educators. Those are some great organizations here locally and nationally that do similar protection and provide similar protection, if not better, to the teachers and educators all across the United States, and provide not only $1 million that the union usually talks about, they actually provide double of that, the 2 million protection, without any politics, without any kind of garbage that the union does, at the fraction of the cost. Oftentimes it's about $19, $16 a month, which is just a fraction of the cost. And as you guys can see also here, when teachers opt out, they save over and oftentimes over $1,100 a year. And just, a typical 20-year career, $25,000. And that's the money that can stay in their pockets, in their families, and perhaps even pay for their children's college, right? So things like that is something that teachers are finally realizing, and we have thousands of teachers leaving the union. This year alone, we had a record breaking number of teachers opting out just this year alone, with nearly 800 teachers that opted out this year. Last year we saw over 600 teachers opt out, and our goal is to continue. And by the end of this year, my goal is to get up to 1 million, up to 1,000 teachers that will opt out by the end of this year. I think this is just going to continue because the union is just going to continue doing what they're doing, and until they get some kind of accountability, until they just essentially self-destruct in many ways. And more and more teachers are waking up, more and more public employees are waking up. So I invite everybody here that's on this call, who are watching here today live, and who are watching us in the future, maybe on Zoom, on YouTube, or on the website or whatever. If you know a teacher, if you know a public employee who are still in the union, or maybe you don't know for sure, just let them know, hey, by the way, if you're still paying union dues, just so you know, you can opt out of the union. You visit Oregon Moms Union website, and there's a beautiful landing page there where that information is on there. Frequently asked questions, a link to the opt-out page, and links to the liability insurance protection, just right there on. And I think Mackenzie will probably share that a little bit as well. But again, you can probably visit their website and find that information. You can also visit a Freedom Foundation website. It's on the bottom here. And you can also visit optouttoday.org.com, which is our main platform that has all the opt-out forms. It's just a website where you choose your state, choose your union, fill out the information, and your union, your opt-out paper, your opt-out page is emailed to you where you can print and you can send it out. Let's say you don't have a printer. We can mail you that opt-out form to your house with a prepaid envelope. You fill it out and you send it back to us. And then we then certify it and send it back to the union, or you can send it to the union yourself. So we make it as easy as effortless as possible. So this way, nobody has any excuses why they can't opt out. And we're here to do that. We're here to continue, and we're going to continue doubling down. We have a lot of people, a lot of teachers, a lot of public employees who are calling us every day, emailing us every day, who are seeking our resources. So that's kind of my brief presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, visit Oregon Moms Union website. There's more information there. There's a website more information on our website, and you can always reach out to me directly. That's just I'm here to help anybody that has any questions. Any questions by any chance? I hope I was as clear as I could.
Actually, Dimitri, I have a question for you. And just so everybody knows, I did put our teachers opt-out kit, which Dimitri so wonderfully helped us put together in the chat, as well as the Freedom Foundation URL. So you guys can go grab those as well. But Dimitri, a question for you is, I know that a lot of, you guys make it so easy to opt out of the unions, but what do you think are some of the top barriers that keep teachers from doing it that parents may be able to kind of consider and maybe help them out with?
I think one of the barriers is really misinformation, not knowing what exactly happens when they opt out. Because like I said before, most teachers think they lose their insurance, they lose maybe their job or their pay or there's some kind of benefit. And that's really one of the barriers of the teachers, is just already being kind of because the union hammers them all the time that if you opt out, this happens, and that most teachers are just kind of like just rely on their union and they just don't think about it anymore. So if the parents just continues giving them information, we can mail you information to your house. If you have teachers, we can mail you. You can hand them that information. If maybe I'm working currently with if you public employees who work in the school, then they're not teachers, but they work in the school. We could work together by providing you literature that you can then share with other teachers. And we even working with a teacher where we're going to come next year during their kind of opening day for all the teachers and actually do a presentation to the teachers alongside with the union for the first time ever. I don't think we've ever had this opportunity where we can actually come and do a presentation next to the union and essentially counter what they're saying a lot of times, and be that resource for them. And I'm looking forward to that day, because I think it's going to be just an incredible experience, just seeing the union. I'm probably shocked to see us, because they've had their, the schools have been kind of in their pockets for a long time, and have done everything they could to make sure that we're not there. And so I'm looking forward to that day when we can actually be there with the union and really debunk some of their lies. Of course, we're going to do it in a very professional way, and we're going to provide information. And so this way, every teacher will walk away knowing that they don't have to be in the union, and better yet, they're going to know exactly what the union does. So then some of these teachers will continue spreading this message to other schools and other teachers all across the Oregon and the United States. That's one of the barriers. And then of course, liability insurance is a big one, because teachers think that's something they lose. That's why we kind of put it on here, because that is literally the biggest barrier, when it comes to something specific. And that's why there's those organizations, like I mentioned, the Northwest Professional Educators, which is part of the AEE, and also the Christian Educators, if you prefer something faith-based. And for example, Sue Smith, she's part of the Christian Educators, and the others that I know are part of the others as well. So you have an option to be that. We used to have an Oregon local as well, Oregon specific, like a teachers educators association, but they just didn't have enough traction. I think if they waited a little bit longer, they probably would have kind of got more people, but they're actually looking for someone to come in and take over that organization. It's an Oregon local, Oregon specific association. So if anybody interested in that, they can always let me know, and I can connect you with that person. But he's given presentations before with us, but it's something that he can't continue with himself.
That's awesome. It looks like we have another question. So it's from Ellen. I am a retired school secretary. Do classified employees have the same options to opt out?
Absolutely, yes. So most teachers are in the OEA union, which is part of the NEA. And then there's also classified employees who are usually part of the OSEA, Oregon School Employees Association. And those two unions are the ones that kind of in the education system. they have pretty much the same thing. They can opt out of the union just like the teachers. Usually the biggest difference is the liability insurance. Oftentimes that's kind of the biggest difference. But yeah, they can. The website that we have on the website of Oregon Moms Union, that will direct you. Also, if you go in that link, you just hit the home button and they'll take you to Oregon, and essentially you can select the classified union. If you're talking about classified employees who are part of the OEA, they can use the same opt-out form that is part of the OEA. So it depends where the union you are. That's why that website is so beautiful. You select your state, you select your union. There's multiple unions. Make it really easy. We divide it so this way there's no confusion, and it's all specifically targeted and catered to each union. So there's no, and our legal team does a really great job just pinpointing and using the exact language that the union requires members to use. Because if you don't use the exact language that they need you to use, they can deny you, they can ignore you, and they can just kind of hit you to the curb until you figure it out yourself. They'll never help you out to kind of tell you what's the right language, unless you meet someone maybe who are decent, which is very rare. And if you're talking specifically to a union, but if you're talking to a member or a former member, they can obviously help you out as well. But those are the two barriers. And then that's specific to your question. I would say the OEA, the same link is all the same, exactly the same. Everything that I mentioned about OEA is the same opt-out process.
Awesome.
And
all right. Any other questions?
There's more questions coming in. I was just going to mention, sometimes union talks about the opt-out window or the unenrollment period. That's something that they usually use that to kind of scare people to wait until that specific unenrollment period. And then most teachers or public employees, they're kind of, they kind of stop thinking about it, they forget about it, and they stop pursuing the opt-out process. We encourage every public employee, first of all, don't wait for that opt-out window. Unenroll now or opt out of the union now. And half the time the union actually doesn't enforce that, and they can just let you out immediately. But sometimes they do enforce it. And like this year, we saw them. They saw an incredible amount of people opting out, teachers opting out, and public employees. And they're going to try to continue enforcing it. But the first thing you do is opt out. That's the first thing you want to do, is get out of the union. I would also say, get a copy of your membership card. That membership card is going to tell you some information that you will need in order to opt out as well. So those are the things. And when you're actually reaching out to the union and asking those questions and asking for those things, they'll probably know that you're working with the Freedom Foundation, and they're gonna they're gonna bully you around less, because they know that you have a Freedom Foundation behind you. And then if you ever have any issues after opting out, and the union doesn't fairly represent you like they're supposed to, then you just come to the Freedom Foundation and we'll help you navigate that. And just again, I want to emphasize that when teachers and public employees opt out of the union, they're members still. They're just a non-paying member, because the union is the only representative that's allowed to represent public employees. They're essentially required to still be that representative, no matter if you're a member or not. It's by law, and the union has to be a representative. The only thing that you lose by opting out is the voting right. So you can't really vote for the leadership, but most people are not even into that, and they just don't even care. So that's the only thing that you really lose. And that's the one thing I wanted to highlight as well.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? If there's any other questions by any chance? If anybody does come up with questions, like I mentioned, the website that we mentioned earlier, Oregon Moms Union website, the link that's in the chat room, that's going to have frequently asked questions. So I encourage, if you are interested in telling your teachers about this, I encourage you to look through those frequently asked questions, and then maybe look back if you ever have any other questions. That's going to give you kind of the basic information that you will need just to be informed about this. And so when you talk to your teachers, when you talk to just in general, when you're in that setting, you'll be equipped with that information. And for example, if you want this kind of paper, this kind of booklet, this little presentation that I gave you, we actually have them printed out in little it opens up, and we can actually mail those to you. We can mail you some opt-out forms we can actually give to the teacher directly, and they can opt out right there and mail it to us again with a prepaid envelope, and give you any other literature that you want. And you can share that in schools. You can share that in, maybe you're in a different, maybe in a part of a different union, or you work for a a state that has a different union. We have all that. You just reach out to me. And maybe I'll put here at the end, I'll put my email and my phone number. So if you have any questions, you can always directly reach out to me as well if you ever have any questions.
Awesome. Well, Dimitri, thank you so much for, sharing all this information with us. I think that, as parents, a lot of us don't always understand exactly what the unions do or really what they don't do that they're supposed to be doing. And so I think this is so helpful. And I think as parents, it's just so important that we are there for teachers and, have these kind of discussions with them and support them, because at the end of the day, there's so many amazing teachers out there and they need support from us to be able to, help our kids and educate them and help them become successful adults. And so I think it's just super important to be aware of, what the government teachers unions are doing and just how that we can help parents. So like I said, be sure to check out OregonMomsUnion.com. On our resources page, we have a teacher opt-out kit, has lots of great resources, FAQs, and it's even something that you can send directly to teachers that they can use. There's a link right there with the great opt out today link where they can go and opt out, and they make it super simple. You can also send them directly to Freedom Foundation. They're a phenomenal resource. They are helping so many teachers and other, government employees all over the country. And they're here just to make sure that people don't get pushed around. And we love that. So I just wanted to thank you again, Dimitri, so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else.
And I just want to mention that everything I said, all the services, everything that we provide is at no cost to anybody. So it's totally free. We're here to serve public employees and union members to help them essentially get out of the bondage of the union so they don't no longer have to be there. And then we have so many gracious members that opt out. They actually, a lot of times they take those dues that they stop paying to the union, they actually start giving it to us instead. So it's a beautiful thing and they're excited about it. And we're doing a lot of great work across the state. So join us. The one thing I also want to mention, if you have maybe some, maybe you have kids who are over 18, they're looking for a job. I'm always looking for canvassers. If you yourself passionate about this and you want to, canvass, we're hiring canvassers all the time as well. So so let us know, and we're happy to connect with you and help you out.
Awesome. All right, everybody, have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.